Hey, I'm Al McGee with YATicket.com. Well, I'm going to talk about this new film called Out of the Loop. This film is about Chicago comics, and they talk about their lives in Chicago trying to be a big star or trying to make money as a comic. And you got many Chicago comics in this documentary. Now, Out of the Loop is directed by Michael Alexander. And he put together these comedians and actors who were in Chicago. And the reason I say were because many of them now are in Hollywood or New York making their full living. For example, like Ollie Leroy. He's from Chicago, started off as a young Chicago comic, but now he lives in Hollywood. In fact, I had a chance to meet him, talk to him briefly. And he was one of the creators of Everybody Hates Chris and other films and TV shows that he wrote for. Also, another Chicago comic, Chris Redd. He's in this documentary also, but now he was on Saturday Night Live, and now he's everywhere. And one more, Tom Dreesen, back in the day with Tim Reed. They were the first black and white comic couple to go around the country doing comedy together. But they talk about a whole lot in this film about Chicago comics. I'm from Chicago originally, and I really didn't know this was going on at the time because I was more interested in music people than comics when I was living in Chicago. And I did go to one or two clubs to see some comedy. And also I did an open night mic in Chicago just out of fun with my friends. But I did not realize how it's going to explode the way it is today. We also got Little Real Horry. He's from Chicago. He talks about his experience in Chicago. And also what they talk about too in Chicago is about the different clubs at the time that was in Chicago. And they talk about all the other little small clubs that they performed in that were not comedy clubs at the time. And they also talked about Second City. I'm very familiar with Second City. In fact, I took classes to do improv myself at Second City. I was chosen. And you can see that some of the comics talk about Second City. And they also talk about that they didn't get chosen and things like that to train in Second City. I had a great time training at Second City. But again, I didn't see comedy as my forte to make money. Or maybe someone didn't point it out to me. And we also got Dwayne Kennedy in this too. We got Kyle Keane in this and Joshua Mann. TJ Miller, you know who he is, and Jimmy Preto. And you also got Owen H.M. Smith. Remember Marsha Warfield? And you know, this guy, I really like him a lot too. Jeff Garland, Pete Holmes, and my man Godfrey. I met him before too, and I've seen him perform. He's very funny. John Riggy. And we got Mary Ella Lindsay. She's in this also. Now, there's a comedian they do talk about in this film, and they talk about, you know who he is. Come on, you know who he is? The great late Bernie Mac. In fact, one of the comedians that I went to school with, he was a good friend with Bernie Mac, Anthony Griffith, and he toured with Bernie Mac. I was at the university with Anthony, and I saw him perform a couple of times over the years. And I tell you, Chicago comics have really made it. Hey, you know Hannibal Buress? He's from Chicago. Dion Cole, again, I got a chance to meet him, talk to him. And Erica Clark, she's in this film also. And also, I didn't realize that Chicago comedians at the time really had to face some racism because, you know, Chicago's a very segregated city. And when a black comedian went to, well, the suburbs and things like that, well, at that time, they did not go over well with that audience. But everything worked out for many of them. But now, as they state in the documentary, many of the clubs are gone. It's not that many clubs. in Chicago for comedians. Not at all. And this is one thing I like what the director did, Michael Alexander. Looked like he took some old footage also of Chicago comedians and put this all together too. I really enjoyed it. I really learned a lot in this documentary, Out of the Loop. I really did. I really enjoyed it. Yes, he had some old interviews from many of the Chicago comedians, but he put that all together. But he put it together very well. I really enjoyed this film. Now, this film is on the internet. I don't know if it's pay-per-view or where it's at, anything like that, but look for it, Out of the Loop. I'm going to give this 3 palm trees out of 4. The reason for that is because, well, like I say, he had some old stuff and he didn't have a lot of current stuff in this film. But I really enjoyed it and I learned a great deal from this documentary, Out of the Loop, directed by Michael Alexander. I want to thank you for watching me, Al McGee, here at yeticket.com. Hey, I really appreciate it. And subscribe to my platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, things like that. /Your Entertainment Ticket /yeticket.com. Thanks.
This is your entertainment ticket. Latest and greatest movies.